Tapestry is a form of textile art, traditionally woven on a vertical loom. Tapestries are mostly found in high-quality museums. Tapestry is weft-faced weaving, in which all the warp threads are hidden in the completed work, unlike cloth weaving where both the warp and the weft threads may be visible. In tapestry weaving, weft yarns are typically discontinuous. The artisan interlaces each colored weft back and forth in its own small pattern area. It is a plain weft-faced weave having weft threads of different colors worked over portions of the warp to form the design. Most weavers use a natural warp thread, such as linen or cotton. The weft threads are usually wool or cotton, but may include silk, gold, silver, or other alternatives. Etymology. First attested in English in 1467, the word tapestry derives from Old French tapisserie, from tapisser, meaning to cover with heavy fabric, to carpet, in turn from tapi, heavy fabric, via Latin tapes, which is the Latinization of the Greek tau alpha pi eta sigma, carpet, rug. The earliest attested form of the word is the Mycenaean Greek ta-pi-ya, written in the Linear B syllabary. Function. The success of decorative tapestry can be partially explained by its portability. Kings and noblemen could roll up and transport tapestries from one residence to another. In churches, they were displayed on special occasions. Tapestries were also draped on the walls of castles for insulation during winter, as well as for decorative display. In the Middle Ages and Renaissance, a rich tapestry panel woven with symbolic emblems, mottos, or coats of arms called a baldachin, canopy of state or cloth of state was hung behind and over a throne as a symbol of authority. The seat under such a canopy of state would normally be raised on a dais. The iconography of most Western tapestries goes back to written sources, the Bible and Nova's Metamorphoses being two popular choices. Apart from the religious and mythological images, hunting scenes are the subject of many tapestries produced for indoor decoration. Historical development. Tapestries have been used since at least Hellenistic times. Samples of Greek tapestry have been found preserved in the desert of Tarim Basin dating from the 3rd century BC. Tapestry reached a new stage in Europe in the early 14th century AD. The first wave of production originated in Germany and Switzerland. Over time, the craft expanded to France and the Netherlands. The basic tools have remained much the same. In the 14th and 15th centuries, Arras, France was a thriving textile town. The industry specialized in fine wool tapestries which were sold to decorate palaces and castles all over Europe. Few of these tapestries survived the French Revolution as hundreds were burnt to recover the gold thread that was often woven into them. Arras is still used to refer to a rich tapestry no matter where it was woven. Indeed, as literary scholar Rebecca Olson argues, Arras were the most valuable objects in England during the early modern period and inspired writers such as William Shakespeare and Edmund Spenser to weave these tapestries into their most important works such as Hamlet and the Fairy Queen. By the 16th century, Flanders, the towns of Oudenaarde, Brussels, Geraardsbergen and Enghien had become the centers of European tapestry production. In the 17th century, Flemish tapestries were arguably the most important productions, with many specimens of this era still extant, demonstrating the intricate detail of pattern and color embodied in painterly compositions, often of monumental scale. In the 19th century, William Morris resurrected the art of tapestry making in the medieval style at Merton Abbey. Morris & Co. made successful series of tapestries for home and ecclesiastical uses, with figures based on cartoons by Edward Burne-Jones. Kilims and Navajo rugs are also types of tapestry work. In the mid-20th century, new tapestry art forms were developed by children at the Ramses Wisser Wassef Art Center in Harania, Egypt, and by modern French artists under Jean-Louis Lercat in Aubusson, France. Traditional tapestries are still made at the factory of Gobelins and a few other old European workshops, which also repair and restore old tapestries. Contemporary tapestry. While tapestries have been created for many centuries and in every continent in the world, what distinguishes the contemporary field from its pre-World War history is the predominance of the artist as weaver in the contemporary medium. This trend has its roots in France during the 1950s, where one of the cartoonists for the Aubusson Tapestry Studios, Jean Lecat, spearheaded a revival of the medium by streamlining color selection, thereby simplifying production, and by organizing a series of biennial exhibits held in Lausanne, Switzerland. The Polish work submitted to the first biennale, which opened in 1962, was quite novel. Traditional workshops in Poland had collapsed as a result of the war. Also, art supplies in general were hard to acquire. Many Polish artists had learned to weave as part of their art school training and began creating highly individualistic work by using atypical materials like jute and sisal. With each biennale, the popularity of works focusing on exploring innovative constructions from a wide variety of fiber resounded around the world. There were many weavers in pre-war United States, but there had never been a prolonged system of workshops for producing tapestries. Therefore, weavers in America were primarily self-taught and chose to design as well as weave their art. Through these Lausanne exhibitions, U.S. artists, weavers, and others in countries all over the world were excited about the Polish trend towards experimental forms. Throughout the 1970s, almost all weavers had explored some manner of techniques and materials in vogue at the time. What this movement contributed to the newly realized field of art weaving, termed contemporary tapestry, was the option for working with texture, with a variety of materials and with the freedom for individuality in design. In the 1980s, it became clear that the process of weaving weft-faced tapestry had another benefit, that of stability. The artists who chose tapestry as their medium developed a broad range of personal expression, styles and subject matter, stimulated and nourished by an international movement to revive and renew tapestry traditions from all over the world. Competing for commissions and expanding exhibition venues were essential factors in how artists defined and accomplished their goals. Much of the impetus in the 1980s for working in this more traditional process came from the Bay Area in Northern California, where, 20 years earlier, Mark Adams, an eclectic artist, had 2 exhibits of his tapestry designs. He went on to design many large tapestries for local buildings. Hal Painter, another well-respected artist in the area, became a prolific tapestry artist during the decade, weaving his own designs. He was one of the main artists to create the atmosphere which helped give birth to the second phase of the contemporary textile movement, textiles as art. That recognition that textiles no longer had to be utilitarian, functional, to serve as interior decoration. Early in the 1980s, many artists committed to getting more professional, and often that meant traveling to attend the rare educational programs offered by newly formed ateliers, such as the San Francisco Tapestry Workshop, or to faraway institutions they identified as fitting their needs. This phenomenon was happening in Europe and Australia as well as in North America. Opportunities for entering juried tapestry exhibits were beginning to happen by 1986, primarily because the American Tapestry Alliance, founded in 1982, organized biennial juried exhibits starting in 1986. The biennials were planned to coincide with the Handweavers Guild or America's Convergence conferences. The new potential for seeing the work of other tapestry artists and the ability to observe how one's own work might fare in such venues profoundly increased the awareness of a community of like-minded artists. Regional groups were formed for producing exhibits and sharing information. The desire of many artists for greater interaction escalated as an international tapestry symposium in Melbourne, Australia in 1988 led to a second organisation committed to tapestry, the International Tapestry Network. Its goal was to connect American tapestry artists with the burgeoning international community. The magazines were discontinued in 1997 as communicating digitally became a more useful tool for interactions. As the world has moved into the digital age, tapestry artists around the world continue to share and inspire each other's work. By the new millennium, however, fault lines had surfaced within the field. Many universities that previously had strong weaving components in their art departments, such as San Francisco State University, no longer offered hand weaving as an option as they shifted their focus to computerized equipment. A primary cause for discarding the practice was the fact that only one student could use the equipment for the duration of a project, whereas in most media, like painting or ceramics, the easels or potter's wheels were used by several students in a day. At the same time, fiber art had become one of the most popular mediums in their art programs. Young artists were interested in exploring a wider scope of processes for creating art through the materials classified as fiber. This shift to more multimedia and sculptural forms and the desire to produce work more quickly had the effect of pushing contemporary tapestry artists inside and outside the academic institutions to ponder how they might keep pace in order to sustain visibility in their art form. Susan Iverson, a professor in the School of the Arts at Virginia Commonwealth University, explains her reasons. I came to tapestry after several years of exploring complex weaves. I became enamored with tapestry because of its simplicity, its straightforward qualities. It allowed me to investigate form or image or texture, and it had the structural integrity to hold its own form. I loved the substantial quality of a tapestry woven with heavy threads, its object quality. Another prominent artist, Joan Baxter, states, "My passion for tapestry arrived suddenly on the first day of my introduction to it in my first year at ECA, Edinburgh College of Art. I don't remember ever having consciously thought about tapestry before that day, but I somehow knew that eventually I'd be really good at this. From that day I have been able to plough a straight path deeper and deeper into tapestry, through my studies in Scotland and Poland, my 8 years as a studio weaver in England and Australia, and since 1987 as an independent tapestry artist. The demanding creative ethos of the tapestry department gave me the confidence, motivation and self-discipline I needed to move out into the world as a professional tapestry weaver and artist. What was most inspiring for me as a young student was that my tutors in the department were all practicing, exhibiting artists engaging positively with what was then a cutting-edge international fiber art movement." Archie Brennan, now in his 6th decade of weaving, says of tapestry, 500 years ago it was already extremely sophisticated in its development aesthetically, technically and in diversity of purpose. Today, its lack of a defined purpose, its rarity, gives me an opportunity to seek new roles, to extend its historic language and, above all, to dominate my compulsive, creative drive. In 1967, I made a formal decision to step away from the burgeoning and exciting fiber arts movement and to refocus on woven tapestry's long-established graphic pictorial role. Jacquard tapestries, color and the human eye. The term tapestry is also used to describe weft-faced textiles made on jacquard looms. Before the 1990s, tapestry upholstery fabrics and reproductions of the famous tapestries of the Middle Ages had been produced using jacquard techniques, but more recently, typically, tapestries are translated from the original design via a process resembling paint by numbers. A cartoon is divided into regions, each of which is assigned a solid color based on a standard palette. However, in jacquard weaving, the repeating series of multicolored warp and weft threads can be used to create colors that are optically blended, i.e., the human eye apprehends the thread's combination of values as a single color. This method can be likened to Pointillism, which originated from discoveries made in the tapestry medium. The style's emergence in the 19th century can be traced to the influence of Michel-Eugène Chevreul, a French chemist responsible for developing the color wheel of primary and intermediary hues. Chevreul worked as the director of the dye works at Les Gobelins Tapestry Works in Paris, where he noticed that the perceived color of a particular thread was influenced by its surrounding threads, a phenomenon he called simultaneous contrast. Chevreul's work was a continuation of theories of color elaborated by Leonardo da Vinci and Goethe. In turn, his work influenced painters including Eugène Delacroix and Georges-Pierre Seurat. The principles articulated by Chevreul also apply to contemporary television and computer displays, which use tiny dots of red, green and blue light to render color, with each composite being called a pixel. List of famous tapestries. The Trojan War tapestry referred to by Homer in Book 3 of the Iliad, where Iris disguises herself as Laodice and finds Helen working at a great web of purple linen, on which she was embroidering the battles between Trojans and Achaeans, that Ares had made them fight for her sake. Though the composition of the Iliad spanned a period of approximately 700 years, it is worth noting that this method of weaving was in common use in or before the 8th century BC. The cloth of St. Gerion, second oldest European tapestry still extant. The Overhogdel Tapestries, the oldest European tapestry still extant. The Sample Tapestry, wool and wool hanging, 3rd–2nd century BC, Sample, Urumqi Xinjiang Museum. The Hestia Tapestry, 6th century, Egypt, Dumbarton Oaks Collection. The Bayeux Tapestry is an embroidered cloth, not an actual tapestry, nearly 70 meters long, which depicts the events leading up to the Norman conquest of England, likely made in England, not Bayeux, in the 1070s. The Apocalypse Tapestry is the longest tapestry in the world, and depicts scenes from the Book of Revelation. It was woven between 1373 and 1382. Originally 140 meters, the surviving 100 meters are displayed in the Château d'Angers, in Angers. The 6-part piece La Dame à la Racorne, stored in Hôtel de Cluny, Paris. The Devonshire Hunting Tapestries. 4 Flemish tapestries dating from the mid-15th century depict men and women in fashionable dress of the early 15th century hunting in a forest. The tapestries formerly belonged to the Duke of Devonshire and are now in the Victoria and Albert Museum. The Hunt of the Unicorn is a 7-piece tapestry from 1495 to 1505, currently displayed at the Cloisters Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. The tapestries for the Sistine Chapel, designed by Raphael in 1515–16, for which the Raphael cartoons, or painted designs, also survive. The World Tapestries, a collection of 134 tapestries at the World Castle in Kraków, Poland, displaying various religious, natural, and royal themes. These famous tapestries, created in Arras, were collected by Polish kings Sigismund I the Old and Sigismund II Augustus. The Valois tapestries are a cycle of 8 hangings depicting royal festivities in France in the 1560s and 1570s. The New World Tapestry is a 267 feet long tapestry which depicts the colonization of the Americas between 1583 and 1648. Displayed at the British Empire and Commonwealth Museum, this is not a tapestry, but is instead embroidery. The biggest collection of Flanders tapestry is in the Spanish Royal Collection. There is 8,000 meters of historical tapestry from Flanders, as well as Spanish tapestries designed by Goya and others. There is a special museum in the Royal Palace of La Granja de San Ildefonso, and others are displayed in various historic buildings. The Pastoral Amusements, also known as Les Amusements Champetters, a series of 8 Beauvais tapestries designed by Jean-Baptiste Audry between 1720 and 1730. The Prestonpans Tapestry is a 104 meters long embroidery which tells the story of Bonnie Prince Charlie and the Battle of Prestonpans. Christ in Glory, for Coventry Cathedral, designed by Graham Sutherland. Up until the 1990s, this was the world's largest vertical tapestry. The Quaker Tapestry is a modern set of embroidery panels that tell the story of Quakerism from the 17th century to the present day.